Well, good afternoon. It's a rainy day here in beautiful New Tecumseh, Ontario, and I thought I'd take a moment during this rainy Thursday while I'm sitting here trying to nurse a pinched nerve in my neck here, and tell you all the things that aren't wrong with my 2007 Maserati Quattroporte. And this is the ZF transmission version, not the dual select. Anyways, I bought this a few years ago, kind of blind. I didn't really know much about them, and I found out afterwards, after I bought it, that I needed brakes. So I called a dealer, and I almost had a small heart attack because the dealer cost would have been around $5,000 for front and rear brake rotors and pads, and that's just this side of ludicrous and that side of ludicrous. There's no reason why steel rotors and pads, which are the same as pads on any other car except for the size, should cost that much money. They call it the Maserati tax, but you also have the Ferrari tax and the Porsche tax and everything else. But I did find a supplier in Florida that sent them up to my house, and I got not the Maserati genuine parts, but obviously the compatible parts, and I got full front and rear rotors and pads for about 1,200 Canadian shipped, and that was take about 2 days. So don't stress out if you need a common part like that, and the price is high through the dealer. But some dealer parts that I did buy were actually very reasonable, like a couple of hoses, I think, and the grommets for the solenoids. Just a replacement because they were getting leaky. Anyways, '07, I've got about 78,000 miles or 120,000 kilometers on this car. I bought it a few years ago. And let's see what's wrong with it. Nothing is wrong with it. I get the occasional misfire, which is some of these cars are very sensitive to electrical things like that. If your plugs are a little dirty or if it's a little damp, I used to get them on damp days. So I checked on my plugs, changed all my plugs anyways, checked on my caps and whatnot. Everything is fine. So it's just one of those things. And it says, yeah, go to dealer, of course, and you worry about it. But once I check it with my little scanner, it's just a misfire, usually number one or usually number three, and I just clear it off, and it's fine for months and months and months. I did have a cracked spring on the rear right side, so I replaced that with a U spring. And apart from that, I gotta say, I did replace a thermostat at the front for the resistor for the front rad, the rad anyways, underneath it. It just corroded, with time. It's placed underneath the rad, and there's a cover on it, but there's an area where moisture does get to it, even though this has a good under tray, much better than most other cars you see. Moisture does its job, so I replaced that. I replaced the liner inside the hood because a freaking squirrel turned it into a nest, so I had to vacuum everything out of the engine and replace that with a used one. That's not a big deal, but that's not a wear and tear item. Or a defect. That's just something that was affected by an angry squirrel. Apart from that, no, there's nothing wrong with it. My headline is where it's supposed to be. The electronics are where they're supposed to be. I did replace the actuator rod or lever or wire, whatever you call it, in the one of the passenger, the rear windows, which is because the little coupling that the cable went into split and it came out. And had I known that before I took it all apart, I would have taken it apart, and I would have just JB walled that little connector right in there, because the part that you get from the dealer is much better than the part that you get from these aftermarket places that, I had to kind of mix and match part from the kit and part from the stock one to get them to work properly. You shouldn't have to do that. So be aware if you're buying one of these aftermarket kits. They say it'll fit, but they'll say it'll fit mostly a lot of cars, but not exactly a direct fit. The stereo, I had the same problem with so many people where the stereo would just cut out and there's no audio. And I know many people have replaced or had the amp repaired. I don't think it's an amp issue. I think it's an issue with the head unit sending a signal out to the amp, because you've got a power on signal going from the head unit to the amp in almost every similar amp style system. What I did is I replaced it with an aftermarket stereo. Now that you got to be careful there, because if you want to maintain some of the CAN bus, it's actually very easy to do. You just take the harnesses that are on the back, take them out, lengthen them all so they fit in your trunk. You got to do a little bit of work to get them underneath the carpets and take out the seats, except you don't do the ones for the speakers, because you're going to tap into those at the front with the new stereo, and then obviously the power, red and yellow, and the ground is ground. You also will lose the connectivity to your CD changer, and I was trying to see if I could find an external changer for this because this is one of those typical block punk units that's used in a lot of European cars, but the controller is in the head unit, and getting an external controller has been a bit difficult, and I think there's some kind of a intermediate relay box because they've changed the wiring around. I don't know. That's not that big a deal. The unit I have now is slide out face, 7 inches. It has a CD DVD player in it. It has GPS, which is okay. It has Bluetooth, which is okay. But I've got this gaping hole in my dash, which I've got to have maybe 3D printed, built in new, and not the dash, the facade, which looks like looks like there. See, when the stereo's out, it covers it, but obviously it's kind of ugly, so I'm gonna have to have that replaced. The reason is because although the screen is up here, the actual head unit is down here, and all these buttons are onto a panel on the head unit, which is down here. So you can't just put a double din in there. It won't fit. There's no space. The ducting is back here for the air conditioning, you see. And if I get one of those flat double din front face ones that are flat, that have no depth, you don't have the CD, and I want a CD because I still use CDs. Yeah, connectivity is great with MP3s if you want to use that, if you like that kind of stuff, but I like CDs. So all these buttons right down here are redundant, and I didn't want to cut into here to put in one of those fake Tesla-style screens, because most of those be good. And the funny thing about those, they want $1,200 for one that fits onto your Quattroporte, but they want $180 for one that fits onto your Chevy Cruze. It's probably the same damn unit inside, but like I said, it's the Maserati tax, right? Okay, so another solution is to get an extra panel, which I do have, cut it out, which I could, put in one of those units, which I might. It's not that important. But what they do with the stereo here is the same thing they do with a lot of other manufacturers, which is they put a lot of speakers in here, and they're all particularly crappy or not very good. A 4-inch or 3.5-inch dash speakers, dumb. There are no speaker pods or openings in the door. I took that one off because I'm going to make a pod, and I've seen them when I did some searches, but the one place that I do that have the pods also only sell them with a complete stereo refit, and now you're looking at $4,000 or $5,000 or $6,000 because they do better quality stuff, and I just don't need that. I just want to build it, so I'm going to have some pods built, or I'll build it myself or whatever. They won't. I'm not going to cut into the door. I'll just cut into the actual panel that fits on the front, which I'm going to get for you. Okay, you know what it looks like. I just showed you. Anyways. And then you cut through the actual door panel. It gives you a little bit of space for depth, and then you have to make an extension to bring it out to give you more. So you're not going to get the same depth as you would if you had a speaker pod that was cut into your door, but there's a mechanism back there I don't want to fret around with, okay? The back ones are a little bit easier to deal with. Now, if you ever take out one of these speakers, you look at it, and you realize when you look at it that it's no more complicated than the speaker you'll see in your Subaru, in your Toyota, in some other cars. They're just whizzer cone 6-inch or 6.25-inch paper speakers, which is disgraceful for a car of this caliber. Put 4 good quality speakers, 2 front, 2 back of the doors. Shove in a subwoofer. That's better than the subwoofer that's in here, which is just that big, really, and it just has a lot of pointless space to it. And put up tune-ups on the dash, and you get a much, much better sound than the stock system that they call premium system. But like I said, I've been to a lot of other cars that have these so-called premium systems that don't sound any better or any worse. They're just the same stuff. The Acura I have, my SUV, has a better sound system than this thing. Okay, that's kind of silly. My old Hyundai Santa Fe had a better sound system than this. It was an '07. What are you going to do? So, what is wrong with my Quattroporte? Nothing. A couple of things I want to do. I don't like the I don't like the parking brake, the electronic parking brake. I've got to do some adjustments on my shoes. And that's really about it. Mileage is good. I get about 8 kilometers per liter, which translates to about 18 miles per gallon in my normal driving. If you let it idle and you boot it, it drops down very quickly. But then I've gotten as high as 24, 25 doing highway stuff. So that's really not a big deal, considering that my SUV actually gets equal or less mileage than this thing. But then I'm carting, drywall shit. My headliner's not sagging. I needed hood struts, so I went to Princess Auto and I bought them there for $20 a piece. Okay, not $250 to the dealer. Brake parts again, I got it for about $1,200 Canadian. You can find them anywhere. The rad hoses, get dealer parts for those because you don't want to take a chance. Plugs or MGKs, it took a while to get them in there, but I did. And I think I need to change my parking shoes on the back, which apparently can be a chore, and they're stupidly expensive. But again, I think there's an interchange part. Oil filters are hard to get and they're expensive, but how many times do you do an oil change? I do about 3 a year at the most. And I'm going to do my tranny fluid because there's no such thing as a lifetime tranny. No problem with the seats, no problem with the upholstery. The sticky buttons was cleared up with rubbing alcohol. I tried using those makeup stuff, and all I did is I left a frayed mess everywhere. But since I was taking out my stereo, I just took off all my dash pieces, all the little shiny ones, except for the actual cluster. And I cleaned up everything with rubbing alcohol. See? Nice and shiny. Could have this off anyways. Nice and shiny. The clock that never holds time is always a half hour off. I don't know why. Nice and shiny. This is a very difficult one. This one I cannot get nice and shiny because it's a very thick coating on here. This thing is plastic, which again is kind of disgraceful. But apart from that, there's nothing wrong with these. Now, keep in mind they're using Alcantara. So what happens there is your seatbelt, if it gets slack, it gets stuck in there and then will mark up the leather. That is not unusual and it's not unexpected. And any car that has nice material, if you're driving around in a Kia Rondo, that's not going to happen as much, or at least you won't notice it. They use this plastic that looks like they came off of a plastic baseball bat. It's more durable than that. And if you have louts kids who like to, drop their food and that kind of stuff, then maybe it's not the car for you. But apart from that, it's been great. I haven't had any issues at all. It's been very reliable. Got a couple of small clunks I got to look at, which is typical because, again, we're talking at 120 or so thousand kilometers, not 12,000 kilometers. So if you buy a Honda with 120, a Toyota with 120, it's going to need something. Now, the reason these cars are becoming inexpensive is not because of their quality issues, apart from the variators, which was a dumbass thing, and the factory should really cover all of those on warranty for life because that is a defect. Okay, is the cost of parts. If you need a tie rod for your Acura, whatever, you can get them any place for 30, 40, 50, 60 bucks. Even the dealer's not so bad. But if you need a tie rod for this car, they're going to smack you over the head 3 times because it's a stupid price. And they'll tell me it's because it's an isolated specialty car. The bushing that goes in your control arm, is that the control arm? Yeah. It's no different than the bushing that goes in the control arm for a $30,000 sedan. It's just because it's in there and they make it so that you can't change it. They want to say, oh, leave the whole stinking piece. So what happens there is people buy these cars inexpensively because the cost of parts scares the owner into selling it. And next thing you know, they can't afford it. They do half-ass repairs and the cost of the cars go down because of the cost of parts. So if Maserati wants to pick up its reputation and not have the reputation of a car that's too expensive to fix, or worse, is a car that's unreliable, is start making these parts more reasonably priced, or at least one so that they can be repaired by buying new bushings and fitting new bushings. The dealers will be a lot busier. They'll make money just the same, and you won't develop a reputation for poor quality. This is the pre-Stellantis car, which I prefer over anything post-Stellantis, which to me is the automotive kiss of death. Okay, and ask any Chrysler garage if they're happy with those products. Like I said, if the cost of parts is too expensive, then the car will drop down in value because people just can't afford them. That's just my little rant. I'm not going to do this while I'm driving around because you shouldn't be doing that. Apart from that, hope you enjoy your car. I've had a good time with mine. I'm going to keep it for as long as I can until it needs something big that's just uneconomical, in which case I'll probably go out and buy a newer model for less than the cost of the parts. Go figure. Have yourself a great day. Bye-bye.